So, our second speaker in this session is Klasander from Linköping University, who is also the director of the Center for
School Technology Education.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the previous speakers. They've been very interesting. Today, the title is Digital Competence from a School Technology Perspective, more than programming. And I think I'm kicking open doors after listening to Jeanette in the beginning here. But I will continue with talk about digital competence from a school technology perspective, and how, to my opinion, it's easier to embrace a digital competence as a part of this than more programming in tech ed. The reason for that is that we have like 200 hours for year 1 to 9. I will also try to set the technology education in Sweden in a context, and present it a little bit historical and international, and end up with the distinction between technological education and educational technology, since it's a little bit important to us, and some personal impressions. And I will start in that way. My personal impression is that the rhetorics for introducing digital competence, computational thinking, programming in schools, not only in Sweden but across the world, has been dominated by understanding the ever-changing digital world, the consequences, the opportunity, ethics, and we need more through vocational education. Nothing has happened the last decades and things, and even if we know that there are more programmers and software employees in Stockholm than teachers. And the democratic empowerment and development of general skills. So, but when it comes to practice, what I've seen so far is that, and what we also can see is that it ends up in service days with Scratch programming and B-bots and Blue-bots and Arduinos. And these overarching aims are a little bit blurred. Maybe because we can see also a tension between the technology optimists and the pessimists, or the hesitant or even resistant teachers here when it comes to this. We've been discussing the need for further research, deeper research, and evidence-based knowledge here. So maybe in this part of the process, it seems to me a little bit more hope developed, hope-based curriculum change, and then research-based. And in many countries, the process has been very rapid. Maybe a little bit nervous. So when the national agency got the mission from the government to make some changes in curricula, it included also the technology subject. And also one of my impressions is that if we look to digital technology as let's call it just digital technology, if it's in digital technology or about, if it's on the free time or on school, you can get just a picture of that. It happens a lot here in this corner. And on the free time, people talk about difficulties around the kitchen table. The PTA has information, the source criticism. And in digital technology, there are discussions about in mathematics, in technology, the ICT here. And when it comes to this, the technology subject in Sweden has a whole part there is something to fill. The civil science is here, the ICT is here, but a lot of it happens here. Okay, so all this wave of digital interest of computational thinking that circulates around the world right now has a relationship to the different technology subjects across the world also. And you can see that maybe you recognize some of your countries here, but there are differences between if they are optional or compulsory, or if there are none at all. They are different if it comes early or late in the school years. They are different if they are including ICT or not. And so the digital landscape cannot be handled the same way, and it has not been done so. So in this way, the National Agency of Education have done I would say, a fairly good job here in Sweden. So what kind of school subject is technology in Sweden? How does the digital competencies, the ICT, and the programming fit in here? And this is from a technology education perspective. And you should listen to me as a director of a national center that with having responsibility for a whole school subject. Right. So I give a short background. I used to treat my students with also. Man have been interested in two worlds. The first one was the natural world. We've also been interested in the social world. And from this, there have been knowledge cultures developing. These were the two cultures that C.P. Snow said in a famous article in like the 50s that they didn't understand each other. And out of this, over the centuries, the two cultures became three. Mostly in the 19th century, the made world also became interesting. And mathematics, as a knowledge area in its own right, crossed them all. The school subjects were constructed. We have here the natural world, physics, chemistry, bio, and natural geography. We have the social world, the Swedish language, history, religion, civil sciences, cultural and languages. And the made world, all this part, if we just took away technology today, we would be sitting naked on the ground. And we stand on 10,000 years of history here. We have also other school subjects that are engaged in technological content or education. But in the Swedish school at the moment, there's one subject that has the responsible for teaching about the whole made world and its relation to other. As some of the other speakers have noticed or put forward, technology and engineering is a still developing culture, and so is the computer sciences. We can see the Royal Society from the 1660s, the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering in the beginning of the 20th century, first in the world, I would say. The National Academies of Engineering in the 60s, 70s, and l'Académie de Technologie in France, 2000. So we are still developing. So after the Second World War, technology education has developed, and it still is. And the philosophy of technology strengthened. And so does the didactic research in technology. I won't go into length, but when we come in 2017, we add digital competencies and programming to an already existing Swedish national curriculum for technology. It has a history from being optional and with a vocational focus for boys, being compulsory in the 1980s for all, boys and girls. And in 1994, it became a subject in its own right with an own national curriculum and compulsory for the first 9 years for all. With these aims: coping daily life, democracy, and recruiting for higher education. And we can just return to my first slide with the rhetorics for computer science, is that we have something in common. So, in an international in an international comparison, you can see that, we're leaning towards more technological literacy than being prescriptive of what we should teach and fix up a bicycle wheel or something like that. The democratic aspects of technology is important, making, modeling, and designing. And the last one is STEM inclusion, where we can see that the T and E is a little bit lost there, and the science and mathematics, or S&M, is dominating. You got that point? Yeah, great. So, who needs to know what? If you are to understand technology from an inside perspective, or from an outside perspective, you have the line here, the axis, the horizontal axis, and to understand it or to deal with it here. If you understand it from an inside perspective, then you would say, you're a constructor or an engineer. If you are to understand it more from the outside, you're a citizen or an aware consumer. If you're from an outside, just how do I use my lawnmower, you're the user. And here we have the do-it-yourself people and the professional amateurs. So the blue ball of technology has moved over the decades and throughout the international arena. Also, different countries have different emphasis in this. And I think that when we communicate around the digital competencies, the programming and thing, it's good to be aware of that. That the other countries' ways of handling this, in Estonia, in Finland, in England, is different from Swedish perspective. So when we this summer got the new national curriculum, the 5 main aims didn't change. That's important. We have a very broad national curriculum, and it's to analyze, to identify problems, to use concepts, evaluate consequences, analyze driving forces. It's pretty tough. So when the proposition came for a national digital strategy, we said, right, this is the place, technology is the place. We are the subject, we is the subject. It was already in the curriculum. We had controlling, one of technology's 4 main functions. We had problem solving, building up a technological repertoire. We had design process. We had optimizing toward often counteracting demands. We had the relationship between technology, society, individual, and the environment, which I think is underestimated in this. The systems approach. I mean, you can't build electronic systems without having systems approaches. And how do we teach children that for the 9 years with a good succession? The technological change. What have been driving the digital technology up to this point where we are now, and what will happen? Can we say something about the future? What do we want to happen? Do we want more cars to park closely and drive more tight on the highways? More cars. We can do it. Or should we ask, is that good? More cars? You know. So digital check, right? So in compulsory school, the digital competencies concerns more than coding, I would say. It helps children act and answer questions about for what can digital technologies be used. Technology is a subject about usefulness and function. How does society change? In what way does our everyday life affect our work, our free time? What do we want to achieve, and how can we do it? And in all this, we have discussions about the technological determinism or autonomous technology, interesting things, with a lot of cultural references to films and literature. and to innovativeness and entrepreneurship. And being able to change technological systems, how do we do that? I mean, the introduction of the computer has the same problems as the introduction of the generator and the electrical motor in the 150 years ago. They introduced an electrical motor, but still had the belts instead of reorganizing the whole factory on many small electrical motors. So introducing digital solutions in industry needs also rethinking the system. Being able to handle and create digital and material solutions. So that's some parts of an adequate digital competence, a battery of them. So the changes in the national curriculum for technology added special focus on digital effects on society and environment. It sharpened the systems approach, the technology role for the electronics and how it can be used. Teaching students about what is a computer and how does this evolve to the internet, the benefits, risks, the digital securities. The more explicit content on programming. So of course, in technology education, we need to think about programming and how shall we do this within the technology subject. But we need to think about all the other stuff too. It can't be only programming. Strengthen focus on communication as one of the main focuses. And technology relevant ICT support for the subject aims, of course. One of the critiques was there have been archetypical pictures of what a computer is. I mean, the dashboard and the screen and the main processor and things like that. Instead of thinking about what are all these computers in the Internet of Things. Okay. So, from this point of view, I would like to say that technology education in a Swedish context is not the same as educational technology, ICT. We have been reluctant since '95 to say that, okay, let's do it. We take care of all the iPads and software and things like that. Now we say we have a curriculum on our own. That's a common enterprise for the whole school. So my conclusion is we have a broad curriculum. We have critical thinking, analytical thinking, systems thinking, designerly thinking. So what about this computational thinking? How can we fit that in? Or is it really a part of something else that we already do in connection to the problem-solving process? Try programming, but we can't put in 10 hours a year. That's 90 hours of education when we have 200. Then the half of the time span for the curriculum is lost. Not lost, but it's occupied by that. And the digital competences are important. Right. So the made world, including the digital world, that's a good thing. We need in-service training not only in programming and digital competencies. Swedish technology teachers need programming for the whole subject, in-service training for the whole. Hey. And one of the solutions might be more hours to technology. The time plan is yet to be decided. Right.
Thank you.